So I finally watched Obsession last night, right? And I was talking to one of my guy friends about it this morning. Why would I do that? I have no idea. And I was talking to him and I was like, now that I've had more time to sit with this movie, I was like, first off, little crazy that the fact that the main character's name is Bear really went over just so many people's heads, and how the whole movie is literally just a metaphor for hello. I told him, I was like, what was the most jarring part of that movie for me is not any of the murders. It was the direct cut from the restaurant to the bed. You could see the tears in Nikki's eyes. You could see that Nikki knew that this wasn't right. And the fact that Bear didn't fully take his pants down in that scene just proves that Bear knew that what he was doing was wrong. Because Bear was literally sitting there assaulting Nikki. And this man goes, I don't know. I thought the most jarring part of the movie was when she cooked the cat. Oh my God.
So Curry Barker's movie Obsession has absolutely taken the internet by storm. And I'm sure if you're watching this video, that's probably not news to you, but I'm here to break down exactly what has happened since the movie has hit the theaters and it's now available for streaming, and millions of people have seen it, have talked about it, and it has literally become one of the most spoken about, most celebrated, and most cherished movies made in a very, very long time. And my personal opinion is that Obsession has helped to redefine the horror genre, and I think the impact that it's had so far is going to change things a lot going forward, along with other YouTuber movies like Backrooms, for instance. One very interesting thing that Obsession did that keeps people talking is that they turned the protagonist of the movie into the main villain. He doubles up as both, and of course this is Bear, who exhibits characters of a very socially inept, very shy, but also extremely irresponsible and downright malicious character at several points throughout the film. And in fact, without his selfishness and the atrocities he effectively commits, this movie has no horror. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. However, of course, the topic of Bear being a villain for some reason has people discussing it online, because some people don't believe Bear is the villain of Obsession when the director himself and everything that happens within the film makes it painfully obvious. Now, there's a few different themes we're going to talk about throughout this video, including the Alex Myers review that resulted in people wanting to cancel him because he had some unsavory statements to make about the themes within the movie, and some very heavy topics like sexual assault and rape. But before we get to all of that, let's talk about exactly how Obsession has helped to redefine the horror genre in one of the best ways possible.
YouTubers are staging a Hollywood takeover. Two Gen Z directors created low-budget horror films that are shattering box office records for the genre.
Hello?
At just 20 years old, director Kane Parsons opened his feature film Backrooms with an $81 million debut, the biggest opening in A24's history. In second place, Curry Barker's Obsession. It crossed the $100 million mark domestically in just 3 weeks.
One wish, Willow. You only get one wish. I wish Nikki Freeman loved me more than anyone in the entire world.
Both films had extremely low budgets, but still generated more buzz online than major Hollywood productions like The Mandalorian and Grogu. So why are young YouTubers finding success even without massive Hollywood budgets? One reason, the evolving audience.
We've seen a pretty seismic shift in Hollywood. Gen Z consumers are smart. They see through the artifice, and I think they're tired of all the endless deluge of spin-offs and sequels and franchise garbage, quite frankly, and they want original stuff.
So up until this point, there's always been a lot of variance with horror. Obviously, you have some horror movies that are a bit more serious than others, some that just rely on typical horror movie tropes like slasher films and things like that, movies that don't really get that deep and embed themselves in cultural commentary like Obsession has. And it's one of the biggest reasons that the movie has performed so well. And obviously, the movie itself was also filmed very well. It has a great story, and it's a downright terrifying horror film in its essence. So it hits a lot of check marks for the horror genre that would be very difficult to dispute. And this is what Curry Barker had to say about his motivations behind Obsessions, his expectations, and how he feels about the responses from viewers.
The lesson is that Gen Z will show up to an original film. Maybe that's all that needs to be said. Like, I don't think it's about IP necessarily. Or it's not even about, you know what? It's not even about being original or not being original. It's about, I think we're all really hungry for good stories.
Yeah.
And we're kind of, I can only speak for myself, but just like a little like tired of like rush, like films that feel rushed or like overly produced and stuff. Like, we want good stories with good characters and like even good filmmaking. I miss Steven Spielberg. I miss like getting obsessed with the way they shot it. I mean, you know, like, the less I knew what I was doing, like I knew I wanted to do that, but I didn't know it was going to work.
What's your gut telling you about why it's sticking like it is?
I think there's something catchy about this movie. It's got that thing where you could dress up for Halloween as it's almost these new characters that people are excited about. You know, we've seen Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers and all these things, but what happens when there's a new character? And I think Freaky Nicky is kind of that new character, and people are kind of sticking to that. And the One Wish Willow is kind of a sticky, sellable item that people are really excited. People are getting tattoos of it. So I knew what I was doing. Like, I knew I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to make something that was kind of iconic.
Yeah.
I know I wanted the One Wish Willow to be iconic, but I didn't know if it would work or not.
So as Curry Barker here put it, Obsession offered something new, right? This new character, this new concept of Freaky Nicky, the One Wish Willow, and it's something that people can cling on to and hold on to. I mean, we've got spooky season coming up in a few months, and I guarantee you there's going to be some people dressed up as Nicky, and it's going to be terrifying. But more so than just that, I believe a reason that this movie has stuck so much is these cultural themes that it explores so brilliantly. And it is uncomfortable. The movie is extremely uncomfortable. I know when I watched it, I wasn't sure if I was going to watch it again because of how uncomfortable it was, but it also highlighted something so remarkably important that is so prevalent in our current society, our current culture, and current climate. And that, of course, is like women's autonomy and people's willingness to take that away and justify people who take that away. And you'll see that a lot with the discourse that came out thanks to this movie, of a lot of individuals exposing themselves as they would make similar decisions to Bear in a situation where Bear has stripped Nicky of her autonomy and he kind of just wants to keep it that way, which is absolutely horrifying. Which brings us to the conversation around the main character, Bear, and how he's very clearly the villain of this story, despite also being the protagonist. But if you think about what the true horror is, it's what Nicky is suffering through as she's trapped inside of her own body, unable to control herself, and has to commit to these horrible actions while being repeatedly assaulted by somebody who clearly doesn't care about her enough to try to seek any sort of help to fix the situation that he forced her into. When you really think about who's suffering the most in this movie, it gets even more terrifying. Obviously, this wouldn't be the internet if there wasn't some kind of discourse. And of course, you have the was Bear the villain debate, even though it's a kind of a one-sided debate. Most people who watch the movie left knowing very clearly who the real villain was, and obviously it's Bear. But of course, you do have some people who would fight tooth and nail to make the argument that Bear was not a villain. I know that sounds like a pretty incomprehensible take to most people, but it's a fact of the matter. It's what some people are saying, some people are thinking. And I'll just give you a little bit of this here. This is from a Reddit post from almost a month ago. They're begging you to read the full thing because they don't want you to misconstrue what they're saying here, though there's really nothing to misconstrued. They make their point pretty clear. So they present a couple of different arguments that people make that clearly demonstrate that Bear is a villain. For instance, on the phone, he wants to alter the wish instead of undoing it. That's an argument. That is, of course, when he calls the One Wish Willow Company and he's trying to see what he can do about the wish. And of course, he literally does asked to alter the wish, which I'll show you that clip right now. I'm gonna have to show it to you guys like this because I don't want to be copyrighted for this, obviously. So here you go.
Like to cancel your wish?
No. It's okay to keep the. I just want to know if I can like alter it a little.
I'm sorry, we don't really do that.
No.
If you have any questions about how the wish works, or if you read the back of the box,
I mean, is it even real?
just because you chose this for her doesn't make it less real.
Okay, then I would like to cancel.
You'd like to file a cancel request?
Yes, a cancel request.
We don't really do that.
What?
Now, I wanted to make sure that we had it crystal clear before we start talking about this, that he does not want to cancel the wish. He's even asked if he wants to cancel. He said, no, I want to keep the wish. Just don't make an alteration. It shows his blatant selfishness and that he's only looking for his self-interest. But this individual here says, as quoting but on the phone, he wants to alter wish instead of undoing it. He says, yeah, for like 2 seconds until he asks the question, is her love real? And realize that it's not actually her decision to love him, decide to undo the wish completely. This individual and many others get this completely wrong. Bear only wants to cancel the wish once he realizes that the alteration is going to work and it's too inconvenient for him as it is. It's not because he gets confirmation that her love effectively isn't real. He already knew that. He just wanted that confirmation. Nothing more, nothing less. The guy asked if he had any question. He's like, you know what, I do. Is her love real? And he knew that it wasn't. And at that point, he knows that things aren't going to get any better for him. So he's like, okay, let's cancel it. This isn't going to work for me. He doesn't actually care about how it affects Nikki. If that was the case, canceling the wish would have been his first line of thought, but that's not what happened. Now, this individual presents other arguments that people use to say that Bear isn't the villain, but the truth of the matter is they're all pretty worthless. Now, this is the very, very famous, well-known dinner scene where she has this public freak out, essentially, where she gets up and she repeatedly says no a bunch of times after being asked whether or not her dad actually has cancer. And of course, Bear reacts to this by trying to calm her down and get everything to be totally normal, above board, as Alex Myers would say. And despite knowing that she's clearly not herself, something is severely wrong with her, flash forward and this happens. Now, obviously, I don't know if I'm allowed to show this on YouTube, so I'm just going to leave it on the still frame here. But yes, he quite literally rapes Nikki that same night. And while this is happening, she is completely expressionless because real Nikki is partially present here and is not consenting to this, which is it's horrible, absolutely horrible. And in this last scene, I want to take a brief look at. This is the scene where real Nikki comes through very later on in the movie, and she is asking Bear to basically free her from this curse by killing her. And his response to this is extremely selfish by asking what would be so bad about being with him. And he corrects himself. He says, what is so bad about being with me? Because he doesn't want to accept the fact that he knows that he is not with real Nikki.
Just kill me.
What would be so bad? What's so bad about being with me?
I mean, it's solidified earlier on in the movie that Bear's very clearly much the villain, but this takes it a step further and makes it so that there is no debate left to be had. He does not care about this individual whose autonomy has stripped from her entirely, who he has repeatedly assaulted, and then when she's begging for his help, makes himself the victim, makes himself the center of attention when there's a woman in front of him who is suffering an unimaginable hell created by him, and he's too busy caring about himself to give even a quarter of a shit about her. Absolutely horrible. Now, some people have even gone as far as turning this into like a litmus test. Obsession, the perfect litmus test. If you're dating someone, go watch this movie together. If the person you're dating says Bear is the victim and didn't rape Nikki, you should run. Now, I've seen a lot of comments of people who just simply could not fathom the fact that Bear is not a victim here, and they sympathize with him and they say these exact things, that he did not assault Nikki at any point, which is pretty horrible. But I do have some examples of that, and I will show you one from a comment on one of my recent videos. Now, this person says, I'll be honest, even after rewatching the movie and seeing it explained every possible way, I have a hard time condemning Bear for his actions up until the dead cat. I think a lot of people are viewing the movie as onlookers rather than the characters. 99.999% of people would date their crush if that same situation presented itself, because no one assumes that some evil magical stick would actually work. And if the person is actually dispelling all of your skepticism the way Possessed Nikki was in the first third, you wouldn't really read that deep into it. Now, this person is saying that under the situation that you've made this wish, this person's acting very different, crazy even, which you've picked up on. It seems like she's on drugs 24/7. Seems like something has changed drastically and it's not okay. This person is saying that most people, the vast majority, would continue to date this person and take advantage of them, which is absolutely horrible to say and totally wrong. I believe most people recognize that something is wrong, even if they don't think that the wish worked, but they would recognize that something is wrong, that this isn't the time and place to be assaulting her effectively, and try and figure out what is going on and see if they could help their friend. Because for all they know, they could be having some type of mental breakdown, some sort of drug abuse, who knows, whatever it is, but you know that their behavior is very, very different than who they are naturally. And anybody who would take advantage of that situation is a bad individual. And this person is saying that the vast, vast majority of people would do that, and that is a horrible thing to say. This person fails that litmus test. I've gone into depth on Alex Myers on a video on my Curl Gator Mysteries channel. So if you're interested in watching that, you can go ahead and watch that over there. I'm just going to kind of summarize bits and pieces of what has happened here with him. Now, Alex Myers is a movie reviewer / analyst. He kind of just summarizes for the most part, but he usually tackles very simple, non-complex, cultural pieces for movies like Disney movies and things like that, which really don't require much deep thinking. And in this case, he decided to punch higher than his weight class with Obsession and criticize the entire internet for their stickiness to the movie and why they talk about it so much. And he can't fathom that people see Bear as this absolutely horrible, villainous individual, of which he clearly is based off of all the decisions he makes throughout the film. And he made that video, received heavy backlash, and then made an apology in quotations, because the apology was not in the room with us, believe me, and he has since removed both videos. Now, even before he made that apology, he was doubling down on things in his own comment section to try to clarify his point of views, which really wasn't helping his case in the slightest. But this is that very defensive response that he wrote. He says, unfortunately, some of you are doing the very thing I talked about in the video. You're only seeing and hearing what you want out of my video instead of actually listening to what I am saying. As I say multiple times in the video, Bear is bad, he does bad things, he's a villain. My video was in reaction to people saying that he is some kind of evil incel from the beginning. I wanted to look at how he goes from just a normal dude into the villain. I say in the video that after he realizes the wish worked, he goes on to be the bad guy and gets worse and worse. I didn't feel the need to show every single instance of him being bad, like the post-dinner scene, because they are all covered by the statement itself. I literally say that he is bad multiple times. I'm not defending Bear. In the video, I tried to make it clear that I'm not defending him. But some of you are literally only hearing what you want to hear and not hearing the actual words I say in the video. I wanted to look at how he goes from a normal, kind of depressed loser guy into the villain, and not that he is a villain from the beginning. I say it's bad, Bear is bad, he does very bad, selfish things. I literally say that at multiple points in the video. So it's pretty much what it summarizes up to. He effectively tries to defend himself by saying that he repeated that Bear was bad, but he also a lot of times tried to give him credit for things that you can't be given credit for. Like, for instance, he gives him credit for not immediately assaulting Nikki when he could have. Like, that's not something you give credit for. That comes off very, very, very tone deaf and rubs people the wrong way. In addition to that, most people firmly do believe that Bear was a villainous individual from the beginning. He was very selfish. He did not take care of anything in his life that he was supposed to, including his cat, refused to take responsibility. And even when he makes a wish, the wish itself is extremely selfish. Now, the thing is, people try to give him too much credit here where they say, well, he didn't know the wish would work. Which is true, but a part of him clearly wanted it to. So a part of him clearly wanted to take away that autonomy from Nikki and basically force her to love him. He did want that, period. And it'd be very difficult to argue that he didn't want that. Because you can even see after he makes the wish and nothing immediately happens, he seems very disappointed. He's like, ah, shucks, it didn't work. And then once he does realize it works, immediately after, like the dinner scene, for instance, he proceeds to assault her, knowing that she doesn't have any choice in the matter, which is just completely void of any consent whatsoever. So it's logical to conclude that Bear is a relatively rotten individual from the beginning. Even if his actions aren't initially rotten, it's still a part of him to act this way. This is how he thinks. It's not like something flipped immediately after the wish or anything where he's like, okay, now I just make bad decisions for the rest of my life. He would have made those decisions no matter what, because that's who he was at the end of the day, which is something that Alex Myers could not understand. And in his video and in his apology, he still tried to double down and hold on to that belief, and people were not happy about it. And his apology did not help the situation whatsoever. Now, what this all boils down to for Obsession and why it's so successful, now it's really changing things, changing in the entire horror movie genre, is because it wasn't only a scary movie. It was one that highlighted a very real problem that affects very real people. And those are individuals who have to deal with their consent being taken away from them, or their consent being ignored, or people being apologists for those who openly and willingly take away consent from others. It's a truly heavy topic, and the movie explores it in a very brilliant way. And it has also exposed a lot of those people who stand on one side of the argument where they condone this type of action. They see nothing wrong with the choices that Bear made, whereas other people get to stand up and say, what Bear did was very wrong, and people who think like Bear, which there's a lot of, are exposing themselves, and we need to talk about that, and we need to recognize those people and make it very clear that them thinking like this is not going to be tolerated. It's not acceptable at all. And then, of course, above all else, Obsession is also a fantastic horror movie, and it helps sets the stage for future horror movies going forward that I hope will draw inspiration from the excellent work that Curry Barker and the team and everybody involved managed to pull off with this film. And movies like Backrooms are no exception to this either. But anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll see you all next time.